Welcome to Flick Connection, where we're doing something different this week. I'm going to be talking about some movies you're going to have a hard time finding. These are movies that have essentially vanished, some of them once considered classics that won a bunch of awards. This list includes Disney's most banned movie of all time, an excellent sci-fi film directed by a convicted child molester who's literally still making movies today, movies you've probably seen. But let's start with one of the biggest twists in Hollywood history, still to this day, and you'll likely never hear about it again. The Crying Game. This film was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and writer-director Neil Jordan actually won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. If you've never seen it, I am about to spoil the big twist because that's kind of the point of this video, is explaining why these movies are effectively off the shelf. But The Crying Game revolves around a man falling in love with a woman, only to find out near the end of the movie that she's actually a man. Or a trans woman, or however you're supposed to say it today. It seems to change month to month, and that's why this movie has effectively been shelved. Back when DVDs were being released, they would release classic movies like this every month, and I remember going into Walmart and just seeing rows of The Crying Game when it released. I mean, this movie stayed popular for quite a while until the trans conversation has changed, and the fact that this twist ending is like equally as horrifying as the twist in The Sixth Sense in this movie, I think is why it has been completely erased. They didn't make the list, but some other movies that fall into the similar category include Mrs. Doubtfire.
What?
I mean, it's available on Disney Plus. It's one you can watch. But the original Ace Ventura has kind of disappeared as well. In fact, its big twist ending is a reference to The Crying Game. And I could be wrong, but as someone who's constantly scouring every single streaming service every single month, I've seen the sequel to Ace Ventura available. I don't know that I've seen the original available on streaming in quite a while. I've even got a Schwarzenegger flick that did make this list that falls into a similar wheelhouse. Now, my next one's going to be a bit more obvious as to why it was banned, and this is one you really, I don't think we'll be able to find anywhere. It's titled Soul Man.
Congratulations, Mr. Watson.
Thank you, sir. I'll do my best.
A young white man, played by C. Thomas Howell, gets into Harvard, can't afford it, and in order to get a scholarship, he paints himself black. It's not paint, he's using tanning pills. Now, similar to another title I have coming up later on this list, this movie does try to critique racism in America, but it comes off as just wholly offensive.
All my life, I've only been able to think about one thing. White women. And now, at last, I'm going to have one.
I mean, it came out in 1986, and it's not like this movie is outdated today. This movie became outdated very, very quickly, which is why some of you probably never heard of it. And obviously, there's some more contemporary comparisons. You've got White Chicks is a movie a lot of people might point to, but black guys dressed up as white women just does not have the same history of subjugating another race the way blackface does.
I don't believe you people.
Huh. What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
And then Tropic Thunder is another obvious comparison. The big difference is the joke in that movie was on the hubris of actors, not on black people.
Damn.
It's a thin line to walk, but they nailed it with Tropic Thunder. I've got another movie coming up later in the list from an acclaimed director that tried to walk a similar line and just failed epically. Now, next up, I've got one that's pretty tame. In fact, when I mention the title, some of you are going to be shocked that this one had anything revolting in it. But believe it or not, Revenge of the Nerds is beyond the pale today. I mean, the entire movie is not. It is still totally socially acceptable to make fun of nerds, don't worry. But there is one scene in Revenge of the Nerds where one of the nerds tricks a woman into thinking he is her boyfriend and has sex with her. Very clearly a case of sexual assault. It's done for laughs in the movie. I mean, yes, some of us are able to watch something like that and realize it's inappropriate and you should never do a thing like that. Other folks see something like that in a comedy movie and it's not taken too seriously and they can easily get the wrong idea.
You're that nerd.
But speaking of sexual assault, my next pick is a fantastic movie. There's actually nothing wrong with it, other than the fact that most of you probably never got to see this excellent gem because of horrible, horrible things the director did. And believe it or not, this director is still making movies you're likely to have seen. In 1994, the film Powder released. Now, I'm first going to give you a review of the film because this is actually my favorite movie on this list. And then I'm going to explain why people refuse to watch it. Sean Patrick Flanery is almost unrecognizable in this movie. He plays a teenage boy who has electromagnetic powers. Not only that, he's got this super intelligence and has this kind of bizarre connection with nature. And as you can see, pale, pale white skin. It's got a bunch of great performances. It's surprisingly heartwarming. It's interesting. There's also not a lot of things like it. But the director, Victor Salva, came under intense controversy when this movie was being released. And that's because he's a convicted sex offender, and I know some of you are thinking, oh, well, what did he do? I'm actually not allowed to say on YouTube, they'll demonetize this video, so I'm gonna bleep it, but he raped a young boy multiple times. It was actually the star of his first feature film. He even recorded it and was convicted. This is all public record, but he continued to make movies. In fact, Disney owned the company that produced Powder, but the victim, Nathan Forrest Winters, had to publicly urge people to not see this movie. He was baffled how something so horrible could happen to him and how this guy could just keep on making these bigger budget movies. And I gotta side with the victim here. Like, this movie could have been made by somebody else. I don't know why they need to keep employing someone convicted of literally like awful, awful things. But as I said, Victor Salva has gone on to create a lot more movies, including the entire Jeepers Creepers trilogy. Yes, he wrote and directed those movies, fairly commercially successful, has gone on to have a career, again, despite being the star of his first feature film. Wild stuff. Sorry folks, I know you don't come here for heavy stuff like that, but I gotta say the next pick is maybe even heavier. Also in 1995, Leonardo DiCaprio starred in the Basketball Diaries. Now, this movie came out to fairly good critical reception. There was nothing too controversial about it at the time, other than it being this very edgy movie about a teen struggling with drug addiction and other awful things in his life. So it's a downer of a movie. But it was released on April 20th in 1995. On April 21st in 1999, the Columbine school shooting took place, and there were a lot of eerie parallels to the Basketball Diaries. More specifically, there's a dream sequence where DiCaprio's character dresses in a black trench coat and shoots up his school. Now, the media made a huge deal out of this, and there's never really been any further comparisons. Like, there's no evidence that the movie inspired them or that they even watched it. But still, those comparisons are so damn close, and it features just an incredible performance from a young DiCaprio, but the movie itself is so upsetting, and now it has this close connection to the Columbine shooting, it's not really worth pursuing, despite the fact that it is well done. Now, I really do not think you're going to be able to stream any of these movies on any of the big streaming services, maybe ever again. They've kind of become that toxic culturally, whether you agree with it or not. But most of them are available to rent if you wanted to watch them. I noticed the Basketball Diaries is not, and then that banned Disney movie I mentioned at the top of the video, that's one I'm not sure anyone will ever get to watch again, despite it being a relatively wholesome family movie. Next up, we've got one based on a book by acclaimed writer Tom Wolfe, and it was directed by acclaimed director Brian De Palma, and it stars Tom Hanks and Morgan Freeman, and fell flat on its f***ing face. The Bonfire of the Vanities.
Sometimes even huge projects, like Bonfire of the Vanities.
When an airline crashes, they say that it's mostly as a result of a series of mishaps.
This movie tried to critique racism, but ended up just reinforcing racial stereotypes instead. It's got like a cartoonish vibe rather than the sharp social commentary the book had. Overly simplistic is another way you could put it. In fact, they did such a poor job of explaining all of the racial nuances all the way throughout the film that it actually hinges on Morgan Freeman giving this speech about morality to kind of put a bow on it, and it's just a clunky mess. And it was a big budget movie. I mean, you would not believe how much this solitary shot costs from the movie to get this Concorde landing with the sunset lined up in the background. And it can be entertaining if you watch it expecting a satirical mess. It's actually free to watch right here on YouTube for now. Tom Hanks was miscast. He doesn't really fit the role of this particular character. And unlike a lot of the movies on this list, this is not one that became despised or controversial over time. People hated this when it was released. In fact, here's what Roger Ebert had to say about it. You know, because racism bad is not saying much of anything. We've still got Disney's most banned movie ever and a Schwarzenegger flick that is hilariously inappropriate today, I guess. But before that, I do want to recommend today's sponsor, Magic Spoon, which has been my late night treat of choice for years now. Longtime subscribers know I like staying in shape, but I got a sweet tooth, especially before bedtime, and Magic Spoon came to the rescue years ago. And that's because Magic Spoon's a delicious high protein treat that tastes just like cereals you remember from when you were a kid. With only 4 to 5 net grams of carbs per serving, but a whopping 13 to 14 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar with no artificial flavors. Magic Spoon is also gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free, making it easy to incorporate into your diet. And if you don't do dairy, they've got you covered. They've got little treats made out of this stuff that are very familiar as well and so delicious. And then more recently, they released granola, which is amazing. It comes in a bunch of flavors. It's my favorite product they've released so far. And right now, my viewers can save $5 off their first order when they use my link down in the video description, or just go to magicspoon.com/flick. It's just been a wonderful way of me getting those extra grams of protein in at the end of a long day while also satisfying my sweet tooth, which is why I've been recommending them for so long. But speaking of things I recommend, let's get to that Schwarzenegger flick. 6 years after the success of their movie Twins, Arnold and Danny DeVito team up again in another film from director Ivan Reitman that is also a fertility science fiction movie with Junior. Now, in no way is this movie actually offensive. If anything, it seems to support the idea that men can become pregnant with science, but it does make a joke out of it, and people who seem to want a society full of pregnant men don't have much of a sense of humor. So this is another one I haven't seen pop up anywhere. I've seen Twins, have not seen Junior, and I will say this is not a great movie. It is funny and it has some similar qualities to Twins. It had grounds for like exploring some more interesting ideas, and they decided to just be silly with it, which isn't a terrible thing, but I'd much rather rewatch Twins. And then the last movie we're going to talk about on this list, another big Oscar winner, Song of the South, actually won an Academy Award for the song Zippity Doo Dah. Obviously a hit Disney song, everyone knows it. It's from this movie. In fact, the lead actor here, James Baskett, would go on to win an honorary Oscar for his role in this movie just a few years later, making him the first black man to ever receive one. And Disney continued to re-release this film every 10 years or so up until about 1986. Now, despite being Disney's most banned movie ever, there's nothing just inherently racist with this movie, rather kind of views the Civil War era South with rose-colored glasses. In fact, the movie itself is still a technical milestone. It's the first film to ever incorporate animation and live action. Not only did they do it well, but this would go on to be used again and again in bigger and better movies through the decades, but Song of the South was the first. But that is the list. I hope you enjoyed finding out about some of these movies that have just completely vanished. If you did enjoy it, definitely leave me a like and a comment, and subscribe. If that button's still red, you're not subscribed to my channel and you might not ever see my content again. But I'll keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this truly special episode. I hope you enjoyed it, but you will see me on the next one.